had given birth and lost my twins. And I don't know if I've ever shared that with anybody at all on YouTube anyway. So what had happened, Curtis is my oldest. So I'm just going to be walking around the kitchen. So if I'm out of here, I'm over here getting my bowl for my cereal. So anyway, Curtis had been born already. So he was born in 1974. And then the very next year, I got pregnant. When I think about it now, I'm thinking about, what the heck was the matter with us? But anyway, after Curtis was born, I was having a lot of trouble with a lot of hemorrhaging and bleeding and stuff. TMI for those that, So I had to have a D&C. So I had a D&C. Right after the D&C, nobody told me that you're not supposed to get pregnant immediately following a D&C. This is a tip for anybody out there that has a D&C that you know of that wants to get pregnant the immediate month. Do not do so. Because you have to build up a lining so that your pregnancy can adhere to the lining and have a healthy pregnancy. So I got pregnant right away. And everything was fine, I guess. It was okay. And then all of a sudden, I started hemorrhaging. No pain, just I woke up and how did this work? I wasn't feeling good. I knew somewhere in my psyche, we had gone on vacation. And the whole vacation, there was something in me that knew something was wrong with this pregnancy, even though I had no signs. And the night before I'd gone to bed, I remember crying my eyes out and Richard just saying, go to bed, I'll put Curtis to bed, and you're just tired, go to sleep. So I woke up and I thought, holy man, I was so tired that I wet the bed. And I was like really embarrassed. So I got up quietly and I went into the bathroom. I didn't turn the light on, and I turned the light on in the bathroom, and my entire nightgown was bright red, as was the bed. And so I don't even remember what happened after that. I think I must have gone into some kind of shock. So next thing you know, I'm at the hospital. I don't know if Curtis came, I can't remember, and it was a long time ago. And they said I was hemorrhaging. They said they had good news and bad news. So they came in, and there was this team of doctors that came down the hall, and I'm like, I thought I was having a miscarriage. This team of doctors comes down the hall. They go, we have good news and bad news. The bad news is you have complete placenta previa, which means the placenta is directly over the opening of where the baby would be born, the placenta sitting like this. It is probably the most dangerous condition in pregnancy, especially for the mother. Because as you know, the placenta is that's the source of food and blood to the baby. And how's the baby getting out if the placenta is sitting there, right? So they said that's bad news, but the good news is you're carrying twins. And so you're like, oh, great. Like, yay. So they said, we have to admit you into the hospital, and you're going to be staying here for some time until this initial bleed is over. So I was in the hospital for, I think, about 3.5 months. And I already was 3 months. So 3.5 months. So I was in the hospital for 6.5, till I was 6.5 months pregnant. So then we came home and we had to hire a homemaker because I couldn't do much. I was on bed rest, and we had Curtis. And back then, kids couldn't visit you in the hospital, so I didn't see him for 3.5 months, which, oh my God. So then I remember that Sergio Mendes came to town, and I loved them. So the homemaker made me this beautiful rusty colored maternity gown because I was huge. I was 7 months pregnant with twins, and I was big. And I got all prettied up, and Richard took me to the theater, and I remember our seats were we had to take the stairs up, and he said, don't you think you should take the elevator? And I said, no, I can do the stairs. I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. So we went, we saw the show, we came home, and I was lying in bed, and of the bleed, I started bleeding again. So off we go back to the hospital, and actually I started contractions. That's what it was. I was starting in labor. So off we go to the hospital. They admit me again in labor and delivery, but I'm just contracting, but not crazy. So they came in, they gave me something, and they said, this should stop the labor. If we can just hold on for another month or so with these babies, we should be okay. So I remember my dad came in. He brought me my favorite sandwich, which I loved. And then I scooted up into the bed to eat it because I was laying down. So you know how you scoot your butt back? And the scoot was enough to tear the placenta. All hell broke loose. Complete, total hemorrhaging. I had both arms like this. One, they were putting blood in one. This one, they're putting IVs in one. They're yelling, and I can hear them all. And at one point, there was so much going on that I kind of shut everything off, and I felt like I was watching myself, watching what they were doing. I was up here watching them all. One says, we're going to have to do a C-section. The other doctor says, no, she's too weak. She's lost too much blood. We can't do a C-section. We've got to put in something that's going to increase the contraction so these babies can be born. It was like total, complete, And I think when the body goes through something like that and it's just too much for you, you leave. And so I remember being in the delivery room, and they're telling me to push, and I don't even remember. I don't remember delivering them, but then I do remember people yelling at me, Monica, come back, come on, we're losing her, and I'm like, in my body, I was at this calmest place, and it just reminded me when it first snows out here, and I was looking up at a light bulb, and it was silent, and I was loving it, and I was like, finally some peace in this chaos, finally. And then I kept hearing this voice of, Monica, come back, all of that. So finally I was like, fine, and I was back, I guess. And I had lost so much blood that I was just going God knows where. At least I almost died. Anyway, so the babies were born, and they were 1.5 pounds each. They were absolutely perfect, but that was a long time ago, and it was before they had the neonatal care that they do now. So one of them lived for only an hour, and the other one they had to rush to another hospital, and he lived for the day. And because I hadn't seen them, really, Richard held them, but I was busy dying. I didn't see them. There's one beautiful doctor. I'll never forget this man as long as I live. He blocked off the hallway so nobody else could come into the baby observatory thing. And he brought my bed there. He sat me up and he made me look at my baby so that I had a connection to what was going on with me. And I saw him, and I remember he looked exactly like Curtis did when he was born, just smaller, just tiny. And yeah, it was this, that was that. And then he passed away that day. So it was before, death and dying, where they gave you a memory box and you buried your babies, and that didn't happen back in the day. And I remember as I was healing, I said to one nun who was a nurse, I go, where are my babies? Where did they go? And she said, oh, they go, my dear, they go in the same place that we put all amputated body parts and legs and stuff. They just go in the body waste. That's where they go. And I'm like, they had names. Their names were Andrew and Paul. They were baptized. What do you mean? They went in some body waste place. That, I swear to God, I never got over that for years. I finally had a friend that worked in, she was doing the palliative care. She was a nurse, and she found where they were. So there's a baby cemetery or a cemetery. It's a Holy Family, and it just so happens that's the same cemetery my father's buried in. So when my dad died, my mother put 2 angels on his headstone for the twins. So that was marking that they were there, but we don't know where they are, kind of, you know. So yeah, that's my story of Andrew and Paul. You know, even though it's many, many, many years ago, they're still deep in your heart. You love them deep in your heart, these little babies. And I just wish I had held them. But so much of that experience has helped me help mothers that have lost babies, because it's so much easier to talk to somebody who's been through the same thing as you. Help mothers who are grieving, just grieving. I have 5 girls and I have another girl. Grieving the fact that they'll never have another boy. Just the whole grieving process. As a doula, it's like your life was mapped before you knew it. And as a doula, it's given you that empathy for motherhood and the respect for childbirth. And it's not always that easy for everybody. And yeah, so yesterday, the 22nd, was that. I share that story with you because I've never shared it publicly online. Nobody's ever heard that story. So I'm really the mother of 5. So there's Curtis, Andrew, Paul, Deanne, and Jesse. And I always think that Deanne, because they were boys, Curtis was a boy. You know, we have a plethora of boys in our family. She's the only girl, and she was my rainbow baby, born right after the twins. And it was like boy, 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 girl, boy. And then boy, 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 you know? So yeah, we have a really special connection, and she's my only girl. And yeah, so without, you know, you always think, those of you that have lost babies out there, if I had had them, then I wouldn't have had, you know what I mean? So yeah, life unfolds, the universe unfolds the way it should. It's not always happy, but when you have the saddest moments of your life, the deepest, saddest moments, then you can appreciate true joy. It's the only way you know what true joy is, by having true pain.